What's up, everybody? It is Izzy, and in today's video, we are going to discuss the #1 hypertrophy exercise for back width. And in my opinion, the only debate really worth having is what kind of pull-up or pull-down is it? Sure, you could try to point out something like, say, a pullover and say that it isolates the lats better than any other exercise, but back width is really not just about your lats. The teres also contribute to width, especially really high up near the armpit, and your rear delts as well are going to contribute to that appearance of width. And a full range of motion pull up or pull down all the way to the chest is going to train all of that musculature, whereas something like a pullover is mostly going to isolate your lats. So I'm sure a lot of you are expecting me to say that free weight pull-ups are the king of pull-ups, and that's not the direction that I'm going to go in this particular case, and there's two reasons why. Reason number one is that until you have a good deal of weight added to like a dip belt or something, pull-ups suffer from an instability problem to a degree. Now, instability exists on a spectrum, guys. It's not like there are stable exercises and unstable exercises. For example, even a free weights barbell squat has some side-to-side motion, but that's nothing compared to trying to do squats on a Bosu ball. And overall, pull-ups are not an unstable exercise. But again, unless you have a lot of weight hanging from a dip belt relative to your body weight, you can get some swaying of your legs back and forth, especially on higher rep sets, and you're going to have to use your core to control that. And that takes away from some of the output that you can get from the lats, the teres, and the rear delts. So one of the ways that you can solve this is with what I call a Smith machine pull-up. Now, what is a Smith machine pull-up? It's basically just where you go over to the assisted pull-up machine, pull-up chin-up machine, and you set just enough assistance for the pad or the bar to stay in contact with your feet and eliminate that swaying. And then you can add weight to a belt as necessary and do regular weighted pull-ups. This just makes it a much more stable variation. Now, that's going to be one of the best options that almost everybody who goes to a commercial gym has access to. However, there's one other big issue with free weight pull-ups or even assisted Smith machine pull-ups, and that is the strength curve. Your back musculature is one of the groups of musculature that has the most pronounced difference in the strength that it has in the lengthened position versus the short position. Part of the reason for that in a pull-up is, if you can think about it, the last few inches of the range of motion really require you to drive your elbows backwards and lift your chest. And some of that is going to come from scapular retraction and action done by the rear delts. And those muscles are simply smaller and not as strong as your lats and teres. Now, one of the ways that most people solve this issue, especially if they're training at home or they do a lot of free weight pull-ups, is that they just skip that range of motion. Okay, that makes it a better match for the lats and the teres, but even still, it's heavily short biased that way. And the other problem with skipping that range of motion is, like I said, one of the main reasons that pull-ups, full range of motion pull-ups, are the king of back width exercises, in my opinion, is because they train everything in your back. So if you're skipping the part that really hammers the rear delts, the lower and middle traps, and even some of the scapular retractors, you're missing out on some of the benefits of the exercise. However, if you don't skip that range of motion and you're using a free weight pull-up, the strength curve sucks. And a lot of people can do many additional lengthened partials where they only go halfway up or they go 3/4 of the way up. And this is why the standard range of motion for a pull-up traditionally is your chin. It's not your chest. Chest to bar pull-ups are their own separate variation, even though that's the full range of motion version. However, in most cases, I would probably say that if you're doing pull-ups mostly for lats and teres, it's probably better to skip some of that range of motion to have a better match for that musculature in terms of the strength curve and where you're getting the most challenge. Now, there is a way to solve all of these issues simultaneously, and that is with a braced, seated pull-down machine that has a lengthened bias. Now, most of you are not going to have access to prime equipment, as I've touched on in other videos, but almost every gym has hammer strength equipment, and most of the hammer pull-down machines, but especially the hammer front pull-down machine, can be turned into a lengthened bias pull-up by lowering the seat as low as it will go. And you can make it even more lengthened biased by putting a little yoga block or a pad on the chest area to push you further back, as that's going to cause the handle to start lower, and it's going to put you in a position where as you move the weight down, it moves closer to the pivot point, making it easier as you get closer to the short position. We can't have a best pull-up variation discussion without touching on grip width. It's very important to realize that a lot of people are blowing changes in grip out of proportion. Every version of a pull down, whether it is a neutral grip, an underhand grip, or a wider overhand grip, trains your lats. Just like moving your hands closer on a bench press doesn't mean that you're now only training triceps and not training your chest. Moving your grip in and out on a pull-up or pull-down variation doesn't mean you're not using your lats anymore. Every pull-down and pull-up variation heavily taxes the lats and the teres. What I can say is this: wider grips tend to have more carryover to other pull-up variations than the reverse. Your narrow and neutral grip pull-ups and pull-downs won't carry over quite as much to wider grips. All that said, instead of worrying about which one is the best, I simply recommend cycling through them throughout the year or potentially in different workouts so that you can get the benefits of all the different grips, as it is going to place slightly different demands on the musculature involved. But don't overthink this. It is not true that only narrow grips that keep a very tight tucked elbow train the lats, and that wide grips are upper back pull downs that only train the teres. Nonsense. They all train the lats, just like all versions of bench press train the pecs. And if you bring in a closer grip, it just makes it a little bit more tricep. Keep that in mind. Cycle through all of them. All grip variations have benefits on pull-ups and pull-downs. So, in my opinion, the king of pull-up variations, and thus the king of back width exercises for hypertrophy, is going to be the lengthened biased seated pull-down. And that is, again, because that's going to allow you to do full range of motion and still get the benefits of training your middle and lower traps and some scapular retractor. It'll give you a good stimulus for your rear delts. But the lengthened biased strength curve still allows you to train the lats and the teres maximally while going full range of motion. So if I had to pick only one, I'm going with, again, the lengthened biased seated pull down machine as the king of back width exercises. If you liked the video, please like the video, subscribe to see the rest of the series, and leave any questions or comments in the comment section below. Peace, guys.